Welcome in to Gridiron Icon. It is that weird week in between Christmas and New Year's. We're recording this on a Wednesday morning. Thank you for joining us. We want to talk a little bit about the week in review and some of the top stories, some of the top games. But to start out, I think it's really important to recognize what was a real blow to the football community yesterday when we lost John Madden. And I don't think there's anybody that may listen to this podcast, or for that matter, that doesn't just love football, that is not feeling a twinge of sadness on losing Coach Madden. And for those, youngsters out there, the people who really identified John Madden with the Madden video game series, which is perfectly fine and fantastic. He put football on the map through entirely new generations with video games. But we want to go back and address what he meant to the game of football. And he meant a lot. I know for this guy, growing up in the 80s, 90s, and even in the 70s, where I watched John Madden coach the Oakland Raiders, that Madden's a part of the fabric of what football means to me. John Madden is everything that's good about football. Of course, he started as a player. He coached in the college ranks at community colleges and then in San Diego as a defensive coordinator for the Aztecs. But John Madden really brought the game of football to life. And I want to recognize and thank the coach for everything he gave to the game, not only as a player, but as a coach at the college level, as a coach at the pro level, both the AFL and NFL, and really what he did as an ambassador to the game of football, even post-coaching. We mentioned the Madden video game series, and there's entire generations of people that grew up associating John Madden with EA Sports and Madden football, and that's fantastic. Certainly, those games were fantastic for a while. We won't get into where they are now, but that was really all due to Coach Madden. And of course, we're remiss if we don't mention some of the fantastic commercials that John Madden was a part of, the beer commercials that again, all of this really put the modern day NFL on the map. Excuse me, froggy voice this week. And I think it's really important that we thank the coach, we recognize the coach, and just walk through real briefly what he gave to the game, I should say. And, I can't thank John Madden enough. He is going to be very, very missed. He and Pat Summerall as announcers in the 80s, 90s were unbelievable. They're the voice of the NFL. We go back to the beginning with NFL films, and a lot of us think of John Facenda and those NFL films narratives, which were fantastic, another icon in the game. But Madden and his partner Summerall, which painfully we've lost them both, were really, truly the best announcers. When they showed up and rolled up to a ball game, you knew that it was the biggest game of the week. And both of those gentlemen are going to be sorely missed. I feel like the football world today is missing one of its most iconic personalities, one of its most iconic coaches that has really ever been associated with the National Football League. And of course, his roots run deeper. Just running down what John Madden gave to the game of football. We'll focus mostly particularly on the NFL and how he got in there, but his journey goes all the way back to 1958, when the Philadelphia Eagles drafted John Madden as a player in the 21st round. Has the draft changed a bit over the years? Has it evolved? Really, Pete Rozelle was instrumental in evolving the NFL draft. But John Madden came in as a player under the Philadelphia Eagles. He was chosen by them in the 21st round. Now it only goes 7 rounds. So it tells you how much the game of football has changed and the insights Madden brought just from that experience as a player and someone that was drafted as a player and then evolved into a coach. But his journey started there. 1958, 1967, after coaching for a short time in college at San Diego Community College as a defensive coordinator, Coach Madden became the linebacker coach for the Oakland Raiders. And for Raider fans listening to this, this has to really, really feel like you've lost a family member today. I mean, John Madden is the Oakland Raiders. John Madden, Al Davis. You go back to, I guess you could go Darryl LaMonica, but Kenny Stabler, those 70s Raider teams that were coached under John Madden were unbelievable. They were unbelievable. We won't go into all the rule changes because there were many. I mean, those teams sported some of the meanest, nastiest football players in the history of the game. Jack Tatum, George Atkinson, Ted Hendricks, Otis Sistrunk, Willie Brown's iconic pick six against the Vikings. I mean, you just go down memory lane. And a lot of that happened under Coach Madden, under John Madden. So he became the linebacker coach in 1967. And here's the thing, he was 32 years old. John Madden was 32 years old. We've had so much press over the last 5-6 years about these young guy coaches in their 30s, the Sean McVays, the Matt LaFleurs, some of these guys that are good coaches that are starting their journeys. But, they came in and they were in their early 30s. Folks, John Madden was doing that in the 60s, 70s. John Madden was a trendsetter, and I think people forget that because we associate that big personality with so many other things now. But he came in as a linebacker coach, and then in 1969 at 32, he became the head coach of the Oakland Raiders. And again, those Raider teams, that's their glory years. If you're Raiders fans listening in, look, this is an emotional day. I mean, Madden was the face of the Raiders. He put them from that AFL, NFL transition as to one of the most dominant teams during that time period. He coached the Raiders for 10 seasons. His record was 103 wins to 32 losses, and he had 7 ties. So in 10 years, John Madden managed to tie teams 7 times. Really remarkable. But he had no losing seasons. You wonder why Raider fans look back to Madden and then, of course, Flores down the road after him as really the golden years for the Raiders and for Raider fans, us old timers, if you will, that were boys or kids during that time, or maybe we were men and are elderly football fans now. That John Madden time period was massive. He put the Raiders on the map. 6 times the Raiders had 10 wins or more. And from 1976 to 1977, they had won 17 games in a row. At the time, that was the record for a winning streak. So John Madden is just incredible. And we forget about what he gave to the game as a coach sometimes. In fact, his career winning percentage was .759, the highest of any coach with 100 wins. And the names under him are all legendary coaches. But Madden was better. He wasn't just this incredible, boisterous, massive personality that we saw in commercials and on TV as a commentator or in video games. John Madden was a dyed-in-the-wool football coach, football player at one time. And so today, as we start Gridiron Icon, we've got our coffee here on a Wednesday morning. We're taking a little bit of a trip down memory lane to a guy who, for this guy, was really the face and the personality of my younger years, despite the fact that for me, I was a diehard Rams fan. I actually grew up in the Bay Area in Marin County, and most of my best friends were all Raiders fans. I don't know how I didn't fall into the Raider bucket, but John Madden was larger than life. And so there's no way we could start our weekly rundown on some of the top things, top observations, without first saying we lost an icon in John Madden. And I just want to say thank you, Coach. Thank you for all you gave to the game. Thank you for the great quotes. Thank you for the crazy commercials. Thank you for the Madden video game, which turned on entirely new generations to, no matter how you feel about the game and its state now, the X's and the O's, understanding football at a little different degree, a little better degree, sure there's lots of people who learned a zero blitz from the Madden EA football game. Coach, thank you. You were an icon. You will certainly be a part of this guy's life and many, many other boys and girls, men and women who are football fans who really, really tuned in on Sundays to watch you as a crazy coach on the sidelines, yelling around with those gestures, going after the refs. You're crazy players, some of the meanest dudes that have ever played this game. And then thanks for what you and Summerall did in the booth. Just a big thank you. So as we start this show's called Gridiron Icon, and we get the opportunity to talk to icons who played this game. We didn't get a chance to talk to Coach Madden, but it doesn't mean we can't say thank you. So, Coach, thank you. Wherever you are, coach them up. We know you will. So let's move into a little bit on what we saw this week. And, of course, I know it's going to surprise everybody. I'm going to talk about the Rams a little bit just because that was a big game. It really, aside from my bias, the Rams are a big story right now, particularly with the Arizona Cardinals going on a 3-game losing streak. They looked like they were in strong command of the NFC West. The Rams are making a run. And this past Sunday to beat the Vikings, the score was 30-23, but it was much closer than in this fan's opinion needed to be. I thought that the game should have been more of a blowout. Two of the big losses early in that game were losing linebacker Ernest Jones and then Brian Allen on the offensive line. An offensive line that was already ravaged due to COVID and injuries with Andrew Whitworth out, Joe Noteboom out, Brian Allen goes out. And I got to tell you, as we start talking about this game, I want to first say big time kudos, big time thanks to Alaric Jackson, who came in and played tackle. This is a guy that's been on the team and hasn't got much time, although he had a lot of promise and potential if you watched him in college. And then also on the defensive side of the ball, as we mentioned, we lost Ernest Jones. Big thanks to Tavin Howard, who really displayed talent the last 2 seasons. He's gone through some injuries last year, 2 seasons ago. He was really coming on as a potential starter and somebody to really take over that linebacker, that inside linebacker position. Fast, can cover, comes in to the game, he and Alaric Jackson, and immediately start making plays. 2 guys cold off the bench who've had almost no playing time. It really speaks to the depth on the Rams, which I think has come into question with Les Snead's wild way of trading away draft picks. But 2 really promising things that came out of this victory for the Vikings wasn't just the victory in their chase for the NFC West crown or division crown, but the fact that 2 guys came in and played in pivotal positions and played really good ball. So big time kudos to Jackson and Howard. Looking forward to what they can do. And if you're a Rams fan, you're really excited after this game because you're seeing depth, which has been one of the concerns, as mentioned, due to just the way we throw away draft picks. That throwaway isn't even the right term. I mean, when you can get Jalen Ramsey, when you can get Odell Beckham, when you can get Von Miller, proven players in this league, it's not a throwaway. But nonetheless, draft capital. How about that? Big time move for the Rams to see these guys play. The Vikings, of course, in this game played without Dalvin Cook. That's a massive blow. Let's not underestimate that. Dalvin Cook's one of the best backs in the game. So Cook didn't play. But I think the thing that this Rams fan came away with was how Matt Stafford did his best to keep the Minnesota Vikings in the game, which I think for Rams fans was driving everybody nuts. Another 3-interception game. And let's be honest, folks, if you watched it in detail, there were 2 other picks that were dropped by the Vikings. Matt Stafford had a potential for 5 interceptions in this game. He was off. He was making poor decisions, particularly with his back up against the goal line, which is now safe to say a pattern. We've seen it in a couple of games. He had another 3-pick game. He's had pick 6s. We're starting to see why Detroit Lions fans have had a love-hate type relationship with Matthew. The talent is there. He comes up big. Look, he was the fastest player to 50,000 yards, fastest quarterback ever to 50,000 yards. The talent is there. But then he throws these games. And you just wonder what is going on. 3 interceptions again. This was the kind of thing that got Jared Goff run out of town by McVay and also by Rams fans. This isn't something that just, is just looked at from the highest level. Fans are seeing it. Everybody's seeing this. Can we trust Matthew Stafford? Even the media. I think the play of the game in this one was Brandon Powell returning that punt for a touchdown. The Rams seem to be struggling a little bit under Matthew Stafford. And again, we're going to get back to that. But Brandon Powell breaking one to the house was really the play of the game. I thought that was the game. That was the move, the play rather, that busted it open. The Vikings were struggling in their own right. We're not going to go too in depth to Kirk Cousins and some of the struggles there. Justin Jefferson basically erased by Jalen Ramsey went on him. So the Vikings had their own struggles, but Brandon Powell's punt return for a touchdown, it was the game changer. If you're a Rams fan and a longtime Rams fan, you're thinking back to Rams Vikings, and you're thinking about Tony Horn coming out after halftime and taking that kick to the house. It was instrumental. The score looked like a blowout back there in '99, but Tony Horn's special teams play was absolutely critical to changing the tide in that game. And I thought Brandon Powell absolutely deja vu'd that moment, if you will, during this game with the Vikings in 2021. Thought it was the play of the game. One of the things that has to be talked about in this game is Sony Michel. Sony Michel looks like a bell cow. Darrell Henderson gets hurt again, and at the time of this recording, he's now on injured reserve with an MCL sprain. So it's starting to look like Darrell Henderson, who I actually really love when he's in the game, is having trouble staying healthy. Let's just call it what it is. Sony Michel looks like the beast he was at Georgia in that running back room. And really how the Patriots didn't use him, not enough. When he was with the New England Patriots, McVay has found his latest version of C.J. Anderson, if you will, and what C.J. did. Thanks, C.J. in 2018, 2019 on that run to the Super Bowl. But Sony Michel had 27 carries, 131 yards. But here's the question. If you're a Rams fan, what is your take on McVay's play calling? Look, it has to be called out. Sony Michel at times was getting 6 to 8 to 10-yard runs, and he was doing it consistently. And McVay would immediately revert to empty backfields, 5 receiver sets. And if you're a fan, it was clear that the Vikings could not stop the run. The defense wasn't doing anything super crazy or exotic. Look, I know we're fans, and everybody wants to say, oh, yeah, from the couch. Look, you can see this on the All-22 film. You can watch this game. They weren't doing anything exotic. How do you move away from the running game when you're getting 6 to 10 yards a clip with Sony Michel? But McVay was doing it again. Look, Rams fans, this has to be called out. We have seen this before. We saw it 20 years ago with Mike Martz at times, where he'd get into these play calling ruts where he'd empty the backfield and it was pass, 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 pass. Are we seeing the same thing going back 2-3 seasons now with Sean McVay? Because it looks like it. It looks like it. And as we're making this stretch run, it is great. The Rams are winning on a 3-game winning streak, and they're nipping at that NFC West division title. But you're still seeing games that should look like blowouts, should look like controlling the clock. And McVay gets into this pass-happy mode. And this is particularly concerning when you see Matthew Stafford throwing the interceptions he is. The Vikings confused him at times. And then there was a couple times where he had wide open receivers, one in particular, I believe in the third quarter to OBJ, where he just underthrew him. So it's worth a question, Rams fans. What say you? Sean McVay, who is a very, very smart coach, if you're a Rams fan, we're lucky to have him. His winning percentage over 5 seasons, having the Rams in the playoffs 4 of 5 years, speaks for itself. Nonetheless, that's what fandom is all about. it seems apparent that Sean McVay gets in play calling ruts and gets into these strange patterns where he is determined to throw, pass, when the other team is giving them the run. Are you concerned if you're a Rams fan? This Rams fan is concerned to some degree with McVay's patterns. And I think this is one of those times where I'm going to boldly call out and say that losing Matt LaFleur, losing Shane Walden, some of these guys that were in that offensive room with McVay has hurt him. I think he needs someone that he respects, that he trusts to tell him, you're going away from what's working. You're going away from it. Sony Michel at times was getting 8 to 10 yards a clip, and then he'd come out, follow it up with 3 to 4 plays or an entire series of empty backfields, no running. And we didn't see a lot of the 12 personnel, the 2 tight end sets, the extra offensive linemen. Now, that could have been due to the fact that we didn't have many of them in this last game. But McVay has some sort of a pattern he gets into, and it doesn't just have to do with what the defense is showing him or giving him. So Rams fans, want to hear from you. What are you seeing? And are you concerned? Late December, going to be January next week. The playoffs are here and the Rams are in. What will we see from Sean McVay? Will we see an adjustment like he made against the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC playoffs on their Super Bowl run 2-3 years ago, where he brought in C.J. Anderson, he brought in 2 tight end sets? We're going to see a lot of 12, 22, something from his offensive playbook. Maybe he's saving it up. We're going to find out. They play the Ravens here this weekend. So it's going to be interesting to watch McVay's tendencies. Skipping just quickly over to the defensive side of the ball, with Stafford giving the ball away at an insane rate in this game, there just isn't enough you can say about the Los Angeles Rams defense. They were unbelievable. AD was just wreaking havoc, tossing offensive linemen around. And when he wasn't doing it, he's doing what he's done for years now, gobbling up 2 to 3 guys so his teammates can do it. He's at 11 sacks this year on what many people would consider a down year for Aaron Donald, which I don't even know how that's possible. Jalen Ramsey was all over the place. He basically erased Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson looked frustrated at times in this game. We've got Tavin Howard coming off the bench and getting an interception, a key interception in the end zone. Troy Reeder was playing just balls out football, making open field tackles all over the place. And then Greg Gaines is another one that just continues to play really big at big moments. And I think we've got our guy to go with Aaron Donald. And that's with Sebastian Joseph Day still nursing injury and not playing right now. So the Rams defense was just excellent against the Vikings, and they were put in some terrible positions by the offense and with Stafford's interceptions. So kudos to Raheem Morris and that Rams defense. I know that there's a lot of Twitter talk and people being critical of that, but boy, we saw some good stuff on Sunday out of the defense. And then finally with the Rams, look, we've already talked about this last week on Gridiron Icon, but Cooper Kupp is doing insane things. Through 15 games, Cooper Kupp has 132 catches for 1,734 yards and 14 touchdowns. He set the record for the most 90-yard games in a game already, and the last game hasn't even happened yet. Cooper Kupp is doing insane things, and you saw it again against the Vikings. And McVay certainly runs the offense through him, which I think is part of what we see with some of these open sets, a lot of 11 personnel. And then you kind of have a hard time arguing it because Cooper Kupp is just unbelievable. He's the best wide receiver in football right now. That is no disrespect to Devontae Adams. He certainly have different playing styles, but Cooper Kupp absolutely should be in the conversation for National Football League Most Valuable Player, and he deserves to be. Do I think he'll get it? No. It's a quarterback award. Let's be honest. But Cooper Kupp, God, who's better right now? I mean, he is unbelievable week in and week out. So just as we close out this episode, just want to talk a little bit about the coaching ranks. This is typically the time of year where we start to see some of the coaches getting canned. We start to hear the rumors popping about certain coaches. And we're gonna make some early predictions. There's already been news this week within the coaching ranks as to some of the hot up and coming guys, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, that coaches or teams rather are reaching out to. As we already know, Jacksonville Jaguar former head coach Urban Meyer has been canned, and there's already rumors swirling, and it's all the names you expect. The Jags have already asked to speak to Byron Leftwich, who is running the offense out there in Tampa Bay with Bruce Arians. I think that's an excellent interview for the Jaguars. Of course, he played there for a time. They've asked to speak to Dan Quinn, who's running the defense in Dallas. That Dallas defense is unbelievable. You could literally make an argument that defense has been carrying the team for stretches during the tail end of the season for the Dallas Cowboys. Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator for Dallas. Bucs defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, who should always be in the conversation, a brilliant mind on defense. And then even former Eagles head coach Doug Peterson has been in the mix, which is an interesting one for the Jags because of the Trevor Lawrence connection. Now, you could see a Kellen Moore, a Byron Leftwich. Not mentioned, at least at the time of this recording, is Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs, which is interesting to me for the Jags. But a Byron Leftwich, younger guy, offensive-minded, former quarterback himself, might relate better to Lawrence, but I think the Doug Peterson connection is an interesting one. We've seen what he can do with a Nick Foles, a Carson Wentz. We've seen what he did in Kansas City when he was there during his time with the quarterback. So Doug Peterson seems like a sneaky good coaching prospect, I should say, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He also has a good vibe about him. Something certainly went wrong in Philadelphia, but I like the idea of Doug Peterson maybe with a Trevor Lawrence, particularly his offensive scheme with a Trevor Lawrence, who we've talked about on this podcast as well as the Dirty Pocket podcast with my partner Daniel Kelly, the scout. Trevor Lawrence has not looked good. So I think those are some interesting names. I think that they should go offense. I think that's a no-brainer. Byron Leftwich and Doug Peterson are really interesting choices. I don't know if I like the Kellen Moore choice for Trevor Lawrence right now, but those are some of the rumors as of this morning. How about the Minnesota Vikings? We just got done talking about their struggles on Sunday, but it's not new struggles. It's not new. Vikings fans are frustrated. Mike Zimmer is a good coach. But he's got a 55-1 record. He's made 3 trips to the postseason with only 2 playoff wins, and that's over 8 seasons. Mike Zimmer may not be the answer there. I would not be shocked to see Zimmer move on at the end of this season from the Minnesota Vikings. Now, they've got a lot of pluses, particularly on the offensive side of the ball with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. Defense still needs some work. I think that they're getting a little long in the tooth on that side of the ball, and that's Zimmer's specialty when he was with the Bengals and came over. Do you think Mike Zimmer survives at the end of this season? I think he plays out the season for sure in Minnesota, but do you think he's the coach in 2022? I don't think so. I think the Minnesota is going to start taking a look around at some of these young hotshot guys in the coaching ranks and maybe make a run at him. Let's talk Chicago Bears. Man, I think if there was a slam dunk candidate for getting canned on Black Monday, I think it's Matt Nagy. And it's really strange because he seemed to be another really good offensive mind, came out of the Andy Reid, Kansas City system. I mean, he was coach of the year just 2-3 seasons ago. But he is absolutely vilified in Chicago. He has not lived up to expectations any way you chop it up. Of course, he started it with the Mitch Trubisky era, not his choice. But now you've got Justin Fields. You've invested a lot in him as a first-round draft pick. Justin Fields, to me, looks a lot like a young Steve McNair, a little bit of Dante Culpepper. He's athletic. He's big. He's tough. He's got a nice arm. Does Matt Nagy survive this season? I'm going to just come out and say no. The prediction here is I don't see Matt Nagy as coach of the Chicago Bears next year. I just don't. I think that they're once again going to look at a Byron Leftwich, who I think would be a great choice, and Eric Bieniemy, another great choice. Offensive-minded coaches that played in the league, that can come in with a Justin Fields, who's a quiet leadership guy, and really get the most out of him. That offense has not looked good. And Fields has had moments where he's looked fantastic, a lot more moments where he looks like he's really struggled. So Matt Nagy at this point, I think, is going to be out in Chicago. Do I think he lands a job somewhere? Yeah, I think that he'll probably end up somewhere, much like Dan Quinn did when he got canned in Atlanta. He'll come back to the offensive side of the ball. He'll coach it up somewhere else. And there are teams that need that. I don't think Matt Nagy is without great value. It just seems that after 2-3 seasons now, the fan base, the losses, a new quarterback, I think Nagy's doomed in Chicago. And I really like, if the Jags don't go after Byron Leftwich, I really like Leftwich as a possibility in Chicago. If he brings in a strong guy on the defensive side of the ball, could also see a Todd Bowles if they want to go defense. That defense has got some players. Robert Quinn has just been resurrected and revitalized in Chicago. 17 sacks. Unbelievable. So the Bears have talent. I don't think Matt Nagy survives. What about the Denver Broncos? And I'm just rapid firing these at this point. Vic Fangio, does he survive? I'm going to come out and say no. Vic Fangio is another one of those good coaches. I think he's great on the defensive side of the ball. His schemes and what he gets out of his defensive players, it has not added up as a head coach. Now, let's be honest with Coach Fangio. He's had rotating issues at quarterback. And look, it doesn't matter how great a coach you are. If you're going to have a rotating door at quarterback, 2, 3, 4 different players, draft picks that bust out, it's not going to bode well for you as a head coach. You've got to be incredibly special to survive that in today's modern day NFL. And Coach Fangio, I just don't think he's going to survive it. I think that he's probably, and this is nothing but fandom talk here, he's probably itching to just get back to the defensive side of the ball and focus on that. Denver has talent. And they're another one of these that if you look around the league at some of these young, hotshot, offensive-minded coaches, these young guys, they've got to be looking at that and thinking, we want one of those two. We want a Sean McVay, a Matt LaFleur, a Stefanski, a Zach Taylor. We want a young offensive mind. Now, the problem in Denver is, again, goes right back to the quarterback situation. They got talent on defense. Patrick Surtain, Chubb. I mean, Simmons. They've got great talent on defensive side of the ball. But they got a problem at quarterback. So before they even look at a coach in Denver, if you're a Broncos fan, they are going to have to take a good hard look at what kind of quarterback they could get on this team. Does Aaron Rodgers leave Green Bay? My prediction is no. What are some of the other available quarterbacks out there that Denver can bring in, plug and play? And I think they need a vet. I don't think they're going to be able to find their guy in the NFL draft. They may go that route. There's a handful of quarterbacks that people are talking about. I'm not big on any of them, not in Denver, not in this role, not a plug-and-play guy with a nice, young, offensive-minded coach. So I think Coach Fangio will be gone, and I say look for that sooner than later, probably Black Monday, right as the season ends for Denver. And I think that John Elway and company will be looking for a hotshot coach with the promise that they're going to team him and go out and get a quarterback. The truth is there's just not a lot of veteran, great quarterbacks available for the Denver Broncos. And then in conclusion, just looking at the teams and coaches, what happens with Rich Bisaccia in Las Vegas with the Raiders? Does he stay? I have a feeling he will stay. I think he stays within the Raider organization. I don't think he's going to get the permanent head coaching tag. I think interim really applies to Coach Bisaccia. I think he's done a remarkable job, folks. I mean, tip your hat to the coach. What the Raiders have been through this year with tragedy and John Gruden's firing, just some of their top players being released, their top draft picks being released. Whatever you feel about the Las Vegas Raiders, God, I'm still trying to get used to that. You have to tip your hat to some of the people in that front office and on that coaching staff because they have weathered some insanity this season. Is some of it self-inflicted? Sure, you can make an argument for that, but much of it isn't. And I think Coach Bisaccia is well loved and respected, not only with the team, but around the league. I think he stays with the Raiders. But this situation with the draft has been a disaster. Their talent base needs a major infusion, really on both sides of the ball, but probably arguably mostly on defense. And then, you have to start looking at the GM, Mike Mayock. Does Mayock survive what's happened in Las Vegas this year? I got a feeling that Davis is going to give Mayock another shot without any Gruden influence, although it's probably questionable if Gruden may be talking a little bit with that team. But I don't think Coach Bisaccia is going to stay. I think, again, they're probably going to look to bring in a young, dynamic guy, my prediction is Mike Mayock does stay. I think they give him more time. He may go after one of these veterans, somebody on another squad that could really infuse some attitude and culture into the locker room. I think it'll be somebody on the defensive side of the ball. My very dark horse candidate for that job is Todd Bowles. Stealing him away from Tampa Bay, I could see him coming and being the head coach of the Raiders, bringing in a good young offensive mind and trying to change the culture there, getting it back to Raider football, which at the outset we started with how they were the tough guys of the NFL in the 70s. I think they still want that culture in Vegas. And I don't think Coach Bisaccia is going to stay in the head coaching role. I think, again, they're going to go after a young guy. My prediction is Todd Bowles. You heard it here first. And give Mayock more time to build up the team on that side of the ball. So what say you? As we close out Gridiron Icon this week, what is your take on the Rams, Sean McVay's coaching patterns? Is that the safe way to say it? And some of these coaches, and who's going to be gone, who's going to get a new golden opportunity? Tell us what you think. You can join us by liking, subscribing on YouTube, as well as on all the major podcast networks. We thank you for listening, whether it's Spotify, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, you name it. We're hosted there. Give us your opinion. You can also find us at gridironicon.com, as well as on Twitter at icongridiron. So for what has been a holiday run, and we look forward to getting back to interviewing iconic players and coaches in the game in coming weeks in January, I want to thank you for sticking through to us, to all those listening and watching. We appreciate you sticking through the holidays. It has been a crazy holiday season, not only from Gridiron Icon, but also around the world. But you can't give up on football. So thanks again for listening. Like, subscribe, and follow us on gridironicon.com. Enjoy your New Year's. Be safe. And as we close, again, thanks to Coach Madden and all you did for the game. Folks, we will see you next week.